A friend of the program has posted something very interesting that I think is worth checking out on pundithouse.com. And it relates to a Veterans March that happened in Washington, D.C. My friend writes this: I fully believe history will look at the events of October 13th as the day when people finally took constructive action against a government hell-bent on arbitrarily and selectively enforcing law and policy based on nothing but politics. But President Obama's biggest mistake? Targeting veterans. Those are the words from Christian Hine, who wrote this piece for Pundit House, I should say. And our friend Christian Hine is now on the line to join us in this conversation. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. Great to talk to you again.
Good to have you on the program again. Let's start off here. Tell me, set the scene for us about what was planned yesterday and where things went.
Wow. Well, I was really excited to be invited by my friend Dennis Peterson to what was being billed as the 1 Million Veteran March on Washington, D.C. This was an event that I believe was the brainchild of an organization referred to as Special Operations Speaks. It's a group that has really been trying to bring some clarity to the Benghazi situation and what happened with the administration relating to the events in Benghazi. But then the same organization has now witnessed, since October 1st, the actions of a presidential administration that I believe is much more interested in political gamesmanship than leadership. With this whole situation surrounding Obamacare and a government shutdown, debt ceiling increases, the administration has sought to cause as much pain as possible during this, what really is just a temporary slowdown in a small portion of government spending. But part of what he's done is to take action to close down our public parks and memorials. And this group specifically was very concerned about what was being done at the Veterans War Memorials that we have in Washington, D.C. There is nothing, I think, more shameful than having, especially here at the World War II Memorial, members of our greatest generation to come and pay their respects, many who had never even been there before, to simply be turned away with barricades. Intolerable. And so what this group wanted to do was have 1 million vets show up in force, remove the barricades, and help escort these heroes into the memorials that they had spilled blood for. And that's precisely what happened yesterday.
Well, as I understand it, they made an appearance there at the memorial, but decided to go somewhere else. And where was that exactly?
Okay. Well, it started at the World War II Memorial, and then eventually supported. It's obviously not just World War II veterans. The same group of folks decided to take a tour of that area of D.C., and we ended up going to the Vietnam Memorial, remove the barricades, onto the Lincoln Memorial, remove the barricades, as thousands of people just coalesced. And eventually it was decided that we would move the protest onto towards the White House. We understood that the president actually was in town, and we thought that he needed to see the amount of passion that was being displayed by these veterans. And so the marchers assembled in front of the White House, carried their signs with them, actually carried some of the barricades that had been blocking access to the other memorials that were visited. And, of course, that's when things really made a turn, in my opinion, for the worse. At this point, there was a peaceful protest that then was essentially confronted by Park Police and D.C. Metro Police, who were outfitted in riot gear. I could understand them staying on the edges and to make sure that there's safety for all involved. I would have no problem with that. But in the middle of this protest presentation, these armed guards decided to march in single file to place themselves between the White House fence and the protesters, pushing and shoving their way into the forefront, and then ultimately trying to erect a very short second barricade between the protesters and the White House fence. which really served no reason whatsoever. I mean, for the length of fence they were trying to assemble, the crowd was bigger. We could have simply gone around the fence if there was any interest at all in causing any problems. But this was designed for show. This was designed as a forceful interaction with the protesters, I think purposely trying to provoke something more heated into taking place. I found it just very intolerable, and I'm proud of the people that I was with that things ultimately were resolved in a calm and peaceful manner. I mean, lots of shouting, lots of screaming, but no violence ended up taking place. But it was just totally surprising that the president would send armed guards to a peaceful protest.
You know, what blows my mind about this as we continue our conversation with Christian Hine, is there anything that was going on that would give you any indication it would be necessary to have police out there in riot gear?
Oh, absolutely not. This was a peaceful protest, and we've had other organizations sponsor events in the past where they've taken the throngs of people into the same area, and there was no police presence at all. This was just a show of force against a group they happened to disagree with this time. I felt it very uncalled for, and I'm actually quite embarrassed for the president.
This is just bizarre watching all of this unfold in the past few days here. What's your sense about how this is registering in Washington, D.C.? Do you think this is – I can't remember anything like this. Do you have the sense that we're living in times that are really unprecedented in the sense that so many people, so many of the American people, different groups are rising up and recognizing that our freedoms really are at risk?
Freedoms certainly are at risk, and I think we are entering a transitional time now, and it's potentially a little scary. No longer are people simply going to just be picking up their phones to record the events at these protests or typing up articles like I did for Pundit House. But it was obvious just with the passion of the people that were there who were taking constructive action to actually move in to a barricaded zone that the government had declared as closed, threw the barricades aside and went in anyway in a very specific act of civil disobedience. And I think we're going to start seeing, until there are some major changes, much more of that. And my hope is, and my prayers are, that nothing ever does escalate to the point of violence. But it's clear that the people that are trying to take back their government aren't simply going to sit by and complain anymore. This was the first time I experienced that concentrated an effort at visible civil disobedience. And where it goes from here is really anybody's guess.
I actually shared something on this program on Friday, Christian, that was about the idea of what's happened to we the people, which is the way this government, the way this country got started off, and somewhere along the line, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, it seems we've shifted from we the people. I mean, think of these parks and other things that essentially belong to we the people, and somehow they no longer belong to we the people, they belong to they the government. Isn't that kind of a sense that people have of what's taken place here? There's this corporate entity that's kind of taken over and it's running away with power away from the American people?
Oh, yes, and it's absolutely disgusting. Like I said in the beginning, this clearly is a calculated effort. There is no reason at all for especially these war memorials to be shut down during what is just a political debate taking place within the halls of Congress. This was essentially taking our veterans hostage to a political situation that, frankly, they're not even involved in. You have people that are trying to go and pay their respects at a war memorial, and instead the government, in a show of force, is probably spending even more money during a so-called government shutdown to keep people from visiting that which they have already paid for and does belong to them. But it's political gamesmanship, and really nothing more than that. But people are waking up, and when it's so obvious, just like it was yesterday. They can't hide it anymore. And now with internet and YouTube, I mean, videos and pictures are everywhere. They're not going to be able to get away with this much longer.
I certainly hope you're right. With Pundit House, Christian Hine, thanks a lot for coming on the program and sharing your story with us, man.
No problem at all. Thank you very much.
And it's kind of interesting.